Hey guys, for the final time this season, we'll be updating the power rankings for Big Brother Canada 11 as we reach the end of week 8. And for the most part, this ranking should reflect the jury scenarios video that I recently made, although there's a couple things to update you on since the digital dailies following my recording of that video came out, but we'll get to that in a moment. But there are 7 players to talk about, and let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into the video. So starting off at number 7, we have the first boot from the double eviction, but here we have Koozie, and this was to be expected. Koozie was pretty much a goner by the time she was on the block. She was the biggest threat left in the game, and she really didn't have anyone left to save her. And obviously the big story now is how much she'll be able to sway this jury in favor of Ty, considering that she's pretty pro Ty at this point. But if we are looking at her game, it was a pretty good game for the most part. She was very good at building social connections, but I feel like there's something missing strategically, where I feel like she was often making moves that were harming her position, with her taking up people like a Hope and a Jonathan, even a Santina, people that would have taken her deep into the game, and people that were actively rooting for her throughout the game, despite recognizing that she was the biggest threat, to where by the time she went home, she didn't really have anyone left. So it's no surprise that she ends up going out here, but still she was one of the more notable presences from the season, which is why she's here at number 7. Now we're moving on to number 6, and we have the other boot from the double eviction, but here we have Shenaya, who did surprise me to a degree. I mean, based on the set that we knew before the double, it didn't seem like she was a particularly likely boot. However, with this emergence of a Ty, Claudia, and Renee Final 3 that was going on at the time of the double, it just made sense for it to happen, especially when Claudia decided to not even put Ty on the block, and when Ty won the veto, it just basically forced their hand to where Shenaya ended up on the block, and obviously she ends up going out here. Now, if we are looking at Shenaya, I think she's a competent player and someone that definitely has potential on a future season. But I also feel like she made plenty of missteps. I feel like there were definitely points where she could have taken more control of the game, but I feel like through that, she just didn't seem that influential, and I do very well question if she would have even won had she gone to the end, as despite her seeming to be a relatively safe person throughout a lot of the season, I feel like a lot of the jury would have had a hard time respecting her game and really pointing out things that she did throughout the game. But I still find it impressive that she positioned herself pretty well. I think there were points where she was successfully able to get out the bottom. And again, I think if she were to come back, I think she would have some potential. But obviously she's out of the game now, so because of that, she is here at number 6. And with that, there are 5 players left in the game to talk about, and as usual, I'll be ranking them based on how likely I think they are to win based on their current game position. But at number 5, we have the person that is most likely to be voted out after this round, but here we have Renee. And there's actually even a chance that by the time this video comes out, Renee will no longer even be in the game, considering that this is essentially the end game at this point. But if we are looking at things as they lie, Renee is pretty much screwed here, as Ty is pretty intent on taking her out. And I think at the end of the day, Renee is someone that I never really saw too highly. I mean, I feel like despite her being seen as this pretty big jury threat, she actually wasn't really, when you looked at the people talking about her in their exit interviews. She seemed like someone that was at the bottom for a decent amount of time. Like, she obviously had her blow that resulted in her being towards the bottom, but even then she was able to scrape away off the bottom to a degree. Now, I think another thing you should point to is the fact that Renee at least recognized that the girly pop should have played the middle during the points where they were in the middle. However, she was pretty ineffective in getting the girly pop to do so, which gave more influence to the likes of Claudia, who ended up screwing up the position to where the girly pops were definitely out of power points and weren't even much of a thing towards that mid game. But obviously they were able to come back together. Renee was able to win a couple of comps that you would think would allow her to gain some respect, but really it just led to her being targeted here. So it's for all those reasons that Renee played a pretty mediocre game, and obviously she's pretty much on her way out at this point. So because of that, she is here at number 5. Now we're moving on to number 4, and we actually have the person that was the HOH during a double, but here we have Claudia. And obviously I was pretty low on Claudia during my jury scenarios video, as I feel like there aren't that many scenarios that she actually wins. For the most part, the jury has been pretty low on her throughout a lot of their exit interviews, and I feel like now that Ty is making more of a run, and especially with her seeming to be close to Ty, I think that's only going to harm her perception really in any scenario where she gets to the end. I think her decision to not even put Ty up on the block during the double is a terrible move, as it just opened up the door for Ty to win the veto, use the veto to basically force one of her closer allies on the block. And obviously, she is sort of forced into putting Shenaya up on the block, and obviously, she ends up going home. Shenaya is pissed at Claudia for this, to the point where I can't really see how Shenaya comes around to voting for Claudia at the end. And even now, like, we are seeing Claudia basically just follow Ty to where she agrees to allow Renee to go home, again, one of her closer allies as well. I feel like coming into the final four, like she's even helping Ty like study his days for the mental comps, which I think further this perception that Claudia is closely aligned with Ty. And the fact that she doesn't seem willing to target Ty is another pretty big knock against her game. I can't really imagine how Claudia gets to the end and is able to really separate herself. And I feel like even if she wins Final HOH and cuts Ty, I just feel like that's not going to be enough. I feel like a lot of the jury will lose respect for her, and that they've already lost respect for her, and I don't really see how Claudia can really gain that back at this point. So it's for all those reasons that I think Claudia is pretty unlikely to win. Though to be fair, I think she's a bit more likely to get to the end than a couple people will be talking about soon. But considering I don't think she's winning, she is here at number 4. Now moving on to number 3, and we have someone who I wish I could put a little bit higher. However, I feel like they're probably going to be in a lot of danger coming to the final 4. But here we have Anika, who is the current HOH this week. And similar to Claudia, the fact that she doesn't even put Ty up on the block is pretty insane. Now, I don't think it's as bad for Anika's game particularly if she gets to the end compared to Claudia, but it's still bad. Like, and obviously with Ty winning the veto, that puts her in a not ideal position moving forward. And I think coming to the final 4, the fact that she's not even able to compete in the HOH puts her at risk, as well as it means that she only has one chance to save herself. And I feel like really her only chance is for either herself or Daniel to win that veto in order for her to be safe. But even then, like considering that Ty is a pretty big comp piece, even Claudia is someone that's pretty capable in comps, I can't really see Anika doing well in that veto, and I just think she's the most likely boot coming to this final 4 round. Now, there is a chance that they could come around to seeing Daniel as the bigger threat, but considering Ty is much higher on Daniel at this point compared to Anika, I think Anika is pretty much going to have to bank on either her or Daniel winning that comp, which I don't think is super likely, which is why she is here at number 3. Now moving on to number 2, and this is the person I had at number 1 last week, but here we have Daniel. And I know people are pretty down and out on Daniel at this point, considering how low Koozie was on her way out. She's very anti-Daniel at this point and is very much advocating for Ty. And considering that Ty is in a very strong position to win out and get to the end, it makes you wonder why I have Daniel this high. But I feel like compared to the people elect, I still have some faith that Daniel could pull out a win here, particularly if he gets to the end without Ty, as I feel like Claudia is someone that has completely shot her jury management at this point. I can't really see a lot of those crown members voting for Daniel over Claudia, and Anika is someone that I think will definitely give Daniel a run for his money, but considering that Anika is very unlikely to survive that final 4 round over Daniel, I think Daniel is probably the second most likely person to actually win if he gets to the end. And even with Koozie being against him, it's not even a guarantee that Daniel will necessarily lose a jury vote, especially if he's up against these other options like a Claudia, for instance. And even Ty, I mean, we'll talk about Ty more in a minute, I could see a world where Ty just drops the ball at the end and like either loses final HOH or even gets to the end and has some pretty bad jury management there. So I still think there are some paths for Daniel to win, but I feel like at this point there is a clear number 1, which is why he is here at number 2. And now, at number 1, the person I believe is the most likely to win Big Brother Canada going into the final week is Ty. Now, to a degree, I didn't really want to put Ty this high, as despite Koozie being very high on him, despite a lot of the jury being pretty high on him, and despite him having a lot of potential to win out, he's still not playing very well. Like, the way he's handled Anika and Renee this week has been pretty terrible, to to where he and Anika got into a fight a couple of days ago where he basically called Anika a liar. And then with Renee, like despite the fact that he's already decided to target Renee, he's still sort of talking down to her and sort of beating her while she's down, to where despite me saying that Renee could possibly vote for Ty, I think that's way less likely at this point than even at the time that I recorded my jury scenarios video. Like if Ty were a somewhat competent player, then this endgame should be a slam dunk for him. Like he is by far the most likely to win out from this point. He has a very clear winning scenario, and even if he's not at the end against Claudia, he still has a shot against other people. But he has really been dropping the ball throughout a lot of the season, where he's not very likable, like he's not a very good person. He's not a very good player either. Like the fact that he is just talking down to Renee is very bad jury management. And even with his comp ability, like while he's very good at physical comps and he's good enough at puzzles, like mental comps like quizzes are something that's pretty much a weak spot for him. And yes, Claudia is helping him out, but even then, there is a shot that he loses that part 3 of the final HOH to where he could get cut there. But at the end of the day, I still feel like he is the person that I probably have the most faith in getting to at least the final 3, where I think he could easily win like final 4 HOH/veto, and from that point on, like win either part 1 or part 2 of that final HOH, get himself into that final 3 HOH. And from that point on, like it's just a matter of whether he can win that final part. Now, I think even if Claudia wins that final HOH, there is a shot that she takes him, though I think he will probably need to win it himself. So I still think there's a danger spot for him where if Daniel wins final HOH, for instance, I could see Daniel cutting him. And even beyond that, even if he gets to the end, I could see like his bad jury management resulting in people like a Koozie not having as much sway over the other crown members at the end of the day. I still think there are ways for Ty to lose this game, both in getting to the end and even like his bad gameplay as of late. But at the end of the day, I still feel like Ty is the person that I had the most confidence and the most evidence in getting to the end, and particularly getting to the end in a winning scenario, particularly against Claudia. So it's for all those reasons that I do have Ty here at number 1. And there we go, that will do it for this week's video. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe, really helps out with the channel. Now, I will probably be live streaming the finale next week, so stay tuned for that. I'm still covering Survivor 44 and doing weekly power rankings on that as well, so stay tuned for that. And if you haven't already, be sure to join my Discord server, which you can join by clicking the link in the description. There's a lot of stuff coming your way, but for now, that is the video. See ya.